couple of years ago, I came across what is called trust, and at that time, I had no idea what it is. Today, everything that I own, I actually don't own anything. Everything that I control is via the trust. And I meet a lot of people in the property investment space that are continuously asking me, TJ, what is a trust, and things like that. And I then say to myself, I am not the right person actually to talk about what is a trust. Let me bring in a guest. So my friends, without wasting time, as you all know, I do property investments, and I want to make sure that you are doing the right thing. So I bring you a resident co-host, all right? So which means that for the next couple of videos, you are going to be seeing this face that I'm going to introduce you to. But it's just not the face. It is someone who has gone through trainings about law. So they wear the hat of the legal. So they are our co-host at the TJ Tribe, resident on the legal side. Pateka, welcome. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm good, thanks. And how are you?
Amazing stuff. So I'm just gonna ask here, this is our first video, 1 of 12, where we are going to be talking specifically about trust. And we are going to be going in the ins and the outs of the trust, on what it's all about, and why you should be having one. So because today it's video number 1, I want you to understand who you're talking to. Pateka been helping me in many of my transactions from when I started to now. She's got a law firm now that she is running. And when did you become an attorney?
Sure. Actually, I became an attorney in 2016. That's when I got admitted as an attorney.
Right.
And then later, I got admitted as a conveyancer.
Right.
And then later, I got admitted as a notary.
Okay, good.
Yes.
I think in other videos we're probably going to debug on what all of those things mean, because I think for a lot of us, we're like, oh, what does a notary do, and all of those things. But we'll talk about it. Today we want to talk about specifically the trust. Now, Pateka, I'm sure you have had this problem, or should I say you've had many people also coming through to you asking you about trust, and what is a trust?
A trust, because I know there's a lot of interpretation out there.
Yeah.
From many people that are advising our property investors on what a trust is, but I'm going to put it in a very simple way. A trust is a contract between a founder, a trustee, and a beneficiary.
Right.
So meaning it is an agreement between the founder, where the founder says that I've got assets, in which assets I want to give them to the trustees so that they can be custodians of these assets, but for the benefit of a beneficiary, of which the founder must then specify who those beneficiaries are.
Well, you're already talking a lot of terms that we don't know about, so let's come back. I want to give it a different definition as well.
Yeah.
You know, when you go to school and then you learn something, you kind of like come back down and you translate it in your own ways. Yes. Of understanding.
Yes.
So the first time I went through to a session, training room, or seminar, they were talking about trust, and I didn't know what it was. And I went to do my own research. Then I realized that there's a number of entities.
Yes.
And I realized that myself as an individual, I'm an entity. So the government sees me as an entity.
Yes.
If I'm married in community of property, the government also sees us as an entity.
Entity, yes.
Right? And we are now one. Right?
Yes.
But if I'm married in, what's the other regime?
Either you're married out of community of property, or you're married according to the laws of a certain country.
Right. So if it is out, then the individuals are still their own entity, isn't it?
Yes, they are still separate entities, yes.
Right. Even though they're married?
Yes, even though
Okay.
they are married.
Good. And then I also realized that there is a private company, which is an entity. I then realized that there is CCs. We've done away with CCs, but they're still in circulation. You can still buy one. It is also an entity. And then I realized a trust is actually also another entity, right? So I think we should see the trust as an entity. I think Pateka has given it from a legal perspective, which I want to follow. But in simple terms, my friends, a trust is another entity that you can buy in. So who can be the founder? You spoke about the founder, then you spoke about beneficiaries.
And the beneficiaries.
Yeah. So let's start with the founder. Who can be a founder? So we know that there's an entity that is called a trust. Who can be the founder?
Thank you, TJ. I think firstly, let me go back to what you have just mentioned about an entity. Because a trust is not the same entity as your company. Because a trust does not have ownership. Because ownership of the assets within the trust, they are not for the trust. The trust cannot own a property. The properties that are owned by the trust, those are the properties that belong to the beneficiaries. So meaning whatever assets that are within the trust, they are not for the trust. They are for the beneficiaries. So that is why when we mention the type of trust that you want to set up, is it either a trust which is a vested trust or a trust that is a discretionary trust? So obviously it's a topic for another day. I'm sure it's one of the questions that we need to also try and elaborate. So coming back to your question then, who can be the founder? Yeah. So the founder is an individual, let me just put it that way. Right. An individual who is trying to, one, create wealth, and then two, to try and preserve the wealth.
Right.
So that individual then, I would say, because I know when it comes to wealth we talk about age, but when it comes to trust we don't talk about age. But I guess it can be anyone who has assets that he wants to protect, or who has, or who's starting a journey where you are starting your own other property journey to try and create wealth for yourself, and then you are trying to preserve that wealth. Because the most important thing is making sure that whilst you are creating the wealth, you must try and protect and preserve it, because we are not creating it for today, we are creating it for the generations to come.
So Pateka, I want to ask you a personal question. When did you start being aware of the trust, other than school? Because at school we learned about it, right? But then it was something that you have to memorize and then write the exam. But now the application of it now, of having a trust, like I started having, my wife and I, we had our first trust about 8 years ago, and then it sat on the shelf. Yeah. Doing nothing.
Yes. Because
we went to a seminar and we were told we should have a trust, but it didn't have a relationship with us or what we're going to do with it. Yes. But we spent quite a bit of money in that. When did you become?
I actually realized that the importance of having a trust, or become aware or get more information on the trusts. I would say when I started practicing. Right. Because that's when the clients come to you and then they're asking, because at the time when I was studying notary, trust is part of the module that you have to do. So I became aware when I was studying for notary the importance of having a trust, and exactly why a trust, and also what is it that you have to do, what are the obligations and responsibilities of the trustees, the founder and the beneficiary.
In your experience, Pateka, amongst people of color, do you see more people of color leaning over to trusts or not? Because a lot of people of color that I meet, they're always telling me, no, this is for white people. And I don't stand for white or black. I stand for people that are wanting to build their wealth, whether they're white, they're black, they're Indian. I teach anybody, and I persuade everyone to do it.
Yes.
In your experience, we are still a young democracy, yes. A lot of us, we are now beginning to be aware of so many of these things. But a lot of people that I meet, especially of color, they are adamant, but that this is not for them. What's your experience?
Actually, you are right, because a lot of them, they are still adamant that it's not for them. But I think because a lot of people now, they are starting their property journeys, and also they are getting a better understanding in terms of wealth creation. Right. Because because a lot of people also that are approaching me is people that have got a lot of assets, but those assets are sitting in their personal names. So now they just want to create a better structure for themselves, because we are also catering for estate planning.
Right.
So a lot of people, they still think that no, it's not for them, but I can see that now the inquiries that I'm receiving are inquiries from people of the color, whereby they are coming back, they are saying, Pateka, I need to understand the structure. How is this structure happening? And I must also mention that it's also quite important that they come forward, they ask questions before they get into setting up this trust. Because setting up a trust, not as much as this, there's a cost involved, but also the administrative part of it. Like you mentioned, now that you had a trust, but it was sitting in a shelf doing nothing. So now, the most important thing is they need to know it's not going to be sitting there. It has to be used, because we are also using it as part of our estate planning.
Right. Hey, my friends, I'm very sorry that I have to disturb the amazing conversation that is happening. But I thought, let me just jump in here and give you a little bit of a good word of a service that I utilize, which is called Xpello. You might have never heard of them before, but basically what Xpello is, all of us who are here, we do property investments. And as and when we do property investments, we have properties that we have and we take insurance on that. And we also have tenants that we've got. And at some point, these tenants tend not to pay. It's a reality in our market. At a national level, they generally say around about 20% of tenants fail to pay. If they fail to pay, what is the recourse? You probably now need to evict them, isn't it? And the cost of evicting anybody, even the going through of that process, can be extremely tedious. And my friends, that's where Xpello comes in. I utilize Xpello myself in all my properties that I've got. The Xpello company, what they basically do is that I said to myself when I was trying to explain this to my wife the other day, and I said to her, babe, Xpello to us is the big brother that we pay on a monthly basis, and as and when we ever have a delinquent tenant, a tenant that is not paying, we can always call on Xpello, and they will do the eviction for us. We don't need to worry about it. They'll handle all the legal fees. They will do everything in ensuring that this tenant is evicted. So my friends, I just thought that it is unfair of me not to share with you this information. So on the screen right now, it's the details of basically how you can reach out to Xpello and you can claim your discount. Well, you might not be able to get the entire link because it's on the screen, but if you have to click in the description of the video, you'll be able to see the same link that is in here that says xpello.link/TJ Tribe, and that's to get you your discount. So my friends, don't be caught with your pants down with your tenants and they become delinquent and you fail to evict them. Just go to Xpello. But for now, let us go back to that interesting conversation that we were having. Thanks for watching. I want to come back to the point where you said we're in agreement that now the trust has been created.
Yes.
And anybody can create it.
Yes.
Whether you're married,
yes,
not married,
yes,
wanna be married,
yes,
not want to be married, anybody.
Yes, anybody.
Okay, good. So that's the first thing. So which then means that if you are building wealth, that's your goal. You're wanting to build wealth. Your number one step should have been how do you build and protect it? Because that's what the trust is there for.
Yes, yes.
To
Correct.
protect these assets.
Yes.
And you speak heavily around the trust, protecting properties and so on. But what if I'm in business? I'm a recycling guy. I've got my own company. Should I own a trust, or should I become a founder of a trust?
Yes, you can become a founder of a trust because, again, there is family trust,
Right.
which some people they call them private trust.
Right.
And then there is what we call business trading trust,
Right.
which they are being used by business people. And then number 3, they are testamentary trusts, which
Right.
those ones you create when one is no more. So usually those ones, they come from a person's will, where they say that should I pass on, then please create a trust for all my assets. Obviously, that means the assets are sitting in their personal capacity. So when we talk about private trust or family trust, so those ones are the ones where the family, either married, unmarried, married out, they will create that trust because they want it to be part of their estate planning, so that they should know that their children, either old or young, they are the beneficiaries of the trust. And then when we talk about business trusts, that's those ones that are being used for trading purposes. So someone can open a business trust if you own a company, and if you want to utilize the trust as a vehicle to do your business. Not as much as we do not, I would say, much encourage it, because of the fact that a trust is highly taxed. But some people, they because I usually recommend a very good accountant or auditor, someone who will be able to advise you better in terms of how to do the structuring better, especially if you're a business person.
Right. Amazing stuff. My friends, you do not want to go away. I did say that this is one of 12, which basically means that for each week we are going to come out with our resident guest, our legal resident guest. She is going to be educating us on different aspects of the trust. So basically what we're doing is we're saying there's a trust, we are unveiling it, we're going in deeper to understand what it's all about. And by the way, if you do have any questions, let us know in the comments. And within the next video that will come up, specifically on the trust, she'll be able to answer that. I'm not qualified to answer that. She's able to. I am just as good as you are. I started off not knowing. I did my own research. I said to my own partaker, we then created, I became a founder of my trust. And out of that, for the last couple of, let's just call it around about 7 to 8 years, my trust now has been running, and everything that I do, we're running through the business where the trust has ownership. So I own nothing, and without at the point of owning nothing, so who does? My trust owns everything. So particularly you spoke about, number one, we have a founder, and it can be anyone, so you can start your own trust today. There's no reason why you shouldn't. Number two, we spoke about, you mentioned trustees.
Yes.
Right? So which means that if there's a trust, a lot of us, we are staying in these either block of flats or complexes, so we are very familiar about trustees. But we want to bring it into how can you become a trustee to your own finances. That's going to be on the next video. Not today, but on the next video. So we jump into that. As we land the plane, partaker, this particular video was for us to dummy the thinking of who can own a trust.
Yes.
And you've just said it, it's basically anybody.
Yes.
On top of that, you need to have the idea of building wealth, because then you can separate yourself from your assets.
Yeah.
And immediately by doing that, the beneficiaries becomes the owner of
the trust assets. Yes.
Right. So let's put it in layman terms. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a house today, and I haven't bought it yet. So I go to ABSA. Shout out to ABSA. They're not paying me to say this. I'm just saying that because of late they've been giving me lots of money. And I go to ABSA, and ABSA then gives me a loan. So I've done the application, but in the same breath, I am not taking the loan. My company that is owned by my trust is taking that loan.
Okay.
Right?
Mm.
And you are saying, if I am creating wealth, this property that I've just bought for 1 million is now going to sit in this company. It's a requirement from ABSA that I should take a life cover.
Yes.
So if I die, the 1 million is paid up. and the property now still belongs to the company. But on top of that, the same company is owned with my trust.
Trustees.
And the trust has trustees,
Yes.
who can be myself and other people. We'll talk about who can become a trustee in the next video. And over and above that, I'm now gone. My family is now around. They now have the proceeds of this property that we spoke about, this 1 million.
Yes.
And for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
I wonder why people don't want to do that.
I think the most beautiful part about having a trust, one is, whilst you are building this wealth, we need to understand that once you decide to have a trust, you're not building it for yourself, unless.
Oh, I think you need to say that again.
Unless you become a beneficiary as well, then yes, you can benefit. But building that wealth, and you want to create a trust, you need to know that you are not building it for yourself. As a founder, you are building it for your beneficiaries in that trust. That is why the Trust Property Control Act is very strict when it comes to beneficiaries.
Right.
Because beneficiaries, you cannot just decide that I want to change them, I want to change my firstborn, take the firstborn out and put this other one. No, you can't do that. So it's very important for us to understand that when I like the trust deed, because what I usually do is when someone is registering a trust, we read that.
So what's a trust deed?
A trust deed is like a constitution.
Right.
A document that will help you understand what is it that you need to do with this trust.
Is this the same document that if I'm the founder, I now need to create?
Yeah.
So I created, or walk us through that process.
You know what, the trust deed, I wouldn't say create, maybe they would understand it differently. I would say it's a document that you need to have, because the Trust Property Control Act is the one that helps you in terms of what needs to be in that document.
Right.
Then
So there's a guiding line.
There's a guiding line in getting that document. Then the document that you need to have, so that you should know that as a founder, these are your obligations, these are their rights, these are your limits.
Right.
As well as the trustees, you need to know what powers the trustees have. And also beneficiaries, you need to know what powers the beneficiaries have, and all their obligations and their rights within the trust. So meaning, whether you want to amend a trust, you go to the trustee to check whether I'm allowed to do the amendment. Whether you want to remove trustees, you use the trust deed in order for you to understand when do you need to remove a trustee, and when can a trustee be removed, and what is required. So I think as well, the most on the trust deed is the object of the trust, or the objective of the trust.
Right.
So the objective of the trust then says you are creating a trust fund. Now, when you are creating a trust fund, you can again become a founder, you can become a trustee, you can become a beneficiary.
Right.
Now, it becomes beautiful then when you can, because again, one of the requirements is that you need to have an independent trustee.
Okay.
And then having an independent trustee helps you then, because you can't all be, you can be a founder and then all of you become trustees and beneficiaries at the same time, because then there is no contract here. Because
so you're kind of like being the referee and the player at the same time.
Exactly. That is why the introduction of the independent trustee.
Right.
So that there must be a person who's very independent. That is why the requirement of that person who is an independent trustee, he must not be related to you by blood or any sort. You can get a friend, you can get a professional person to be the independent, but not your brother or cousin or half brother or whoever.
I thought it was supposed to be a fiduciary, a person who has a fiduciary role, pastors, accountants.
Because
lawyers.
the trustees, all of them, they have the same fiduciary responsibility within the trust. But that independent person, it must be someone who's very independent, not related to you. It can be your pastor, as long as they are not related to you by blood. It can be your professional accountant, your attorney.
But if they're friends,
or friends.
nowadays.
Again, you need to be very selective. That is why, obviously we're going to talk about it in the next video, who can be your trustees. It's very, very important to select the people. I also like the trustee acceptance form. That trustee acceptance form has got 3 parts. There's a part where there are questions asked as to who are you a trustee, a beneficiary, related, and all of that. Point number 2 is declarations. You need to declare whether you were insolvent before and an end. And then the last part in that form is your undertaking. That is now you accepting to be appointed as a trustee.
Right.
Now you need to answer those questions, declare whether you were either insolvent at some point or whatever, and then point number 3, undertaking to the master that you will be able to take these fiduciary roles, and you will be able to be the custodian of the assets within this trust.
Friends, I think you got a little bit more than what you are hoping to get on this particular video. If you're one of those people that are saying, TJ, I'm looking for a trust, I've never had a trust, I've never thought about having a trust. At the TJ Tribe, we're always advocating to say the people that come to teach us, they are more than capable to do the work for you. So if you're looking to get a trust, you can reach out to the link that we are going to put on the video in here. You will see it somewhere, and you can follow that link, add your details, and boom, it will go to Pateka's office, and somebody will give you a call and you can start your journey. If you don't like Pateka, that's okay. You can find your own Pateka wherever you are. Our goal here is to educate, whether you like us or not. That's our goal. My friends, I will see you on the next video.